when I sit and I'm doing a prep call with a client, whether we're on Zoom or on the phone or we're meeting in person, I literally make two lists always, and it's always like challenges and goals. And that's how I'm listening. Like, what are the challenges going on right now? What are the pain points? What's hard? What's making people stressed out, keeping people up at night? What are the leaders worried about? I mean, that kind of stuff. And like really trying to get down underneath what are the key challenges? And then what are the goals? Like, what's the goal of this event? What's the goal of this meeting? What's happening right now with the team or the organization? Or, having done as much research as I've done and written as many books as I have over the years, like there's a lot of content to pull from, but I'm always trying to sort of connected to what's actually going on in the organization or with the group or at the event so that it resonates as best as possible.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I am Engage President Jake Olson. Alongside with me today is Mike Robbins. Mike, you have a rap sheet, as they would call in the criminal world, but no, you're a five-time author. You speak on leadership, team performance, company culture. You were a pitcher in college at the University of Stanford. I'm not going to say go farm, but that's what they would say up there. And then obviously you played in minor league ball, part of the Royals organization. So that's my attempt at a introduction for you, Mike. You are a man of many talents. But Mike, why don't you just tell us real quick about just who you are and kind of what you do in life and kind of what motivates you.
Well, thanks for having me, Jake. It's good to chat with you. Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking professionally now full time for 24 years, which kind of blows my mind. But a lot of what started me in the business and writing and speaking and doing the work that I do came from all those years playing baseball. I got a chance to play in college at Stanford, as you mentioned, and then play professionally for a few years with the Kansas City Royals before I got hurt, which was a bummer. But one of the things that I got really fascinated by, and Jake, you can probably relate to this from your own experience in sports, was that it wasn't always the best players that made the best team. Like, obviously, you need some talent, but there was something else, And when I was playing baseball, we called it chemistry. No one knew what the heck that was, but like you knew when you had it, and you definitely knew when you didn't have it. And it wasn't just some warm, fuzzy, touchy-feely thing. It like made us play better. And all those years ago, when my career ended in sports and I moved back home to the Bay Area where I still live, I got my first job working for a tech company, and it was super different than sports. But I realized, oh, that whole team chemistry thing that I erroneously thought was a sports thing, that's not a sport thing, it's a human thing.
Yeah.
So that's really what I've been studying and writing about and speaking about for all these years. And I'm super passionate about it. I was all those years ago when I first started and still am now. And, the world has changed and how we work and all the things that we do. But fundamentally, it still comes down to people and relationships and culture ultimately. So that's kind
And
of
you,
what fires me up.
and you speak a lot on relationships. You kind of have two key ingredients to relationships. You kind of want to share what those ingredients are, and then also kind of how can someone get better at that in their life.
Yeah, I mean, the two sort of primary pillars of my work that relate to relationships as well as leadership and performance and teamwork are really authenticity and appreciation. And they're relatively simple concepts that we talk about a lot these days. But like when you sort of double click on them, they're actually a little more nuanced and tricky to really, what does it mean to embody authenticity, like personally and as a leader? And how do you infuse authenticity within your relationships and the team? That's easier said than done, but super important. And then appreciation, again, something that we all understand and talk about, but it's different than recognition, where recognition is really more about performance and outcome, and appreciation is more about caring about people. So, I mean, some simple things that people can do as it relates to being more authentic. It's just, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it's just like be yourself,
Yeah.
be real as much as you possibly can. And sometimes that's more difficult than others. And in terms of appreciating people, it's really about looking for and finding things. The very first book I wrote many years ago, Jake, is called Focus on the Good Stuff. And that doesn't mean there's no challenges or no issues, but what it means is like we look for and find things to appreciate and to value about others and about what's going on, even if things are challenging. And that's a huge ingredient to leaders that can really get the most out of others and teams that perform at the highest level.
That's awesome. So, two quick questions based off that. One, when do you feel like you're the most authentic you, and just one person in your life that you really appreciate?
Well, look, the thing about authenticity is there's the saying, there is no way to peace, peace is the way. It's kind of like authenticity. There's no way to authenticity. It's kind of the way. And for me, um, I try to be authentic everywhere and anywhere, but I find that, when I'm actually speaking, when I'm doing my work, whether it's a podcast interview or a coaching session or I'm on stage giving a keynote, as much as I'm talking about authenticity, I'm doing everything I can to actually be authentic and be myself in those moments, which is
Gotcha.
an interesting paradox because again, I'm a professional speaker. Like I have stories that I tell, I have, content that I deliver, but it's like, can I be real in that moment as I'm actually talking about authenticity? Because, I just I find that an exciting challenge, but like the best way to demonstrate it is just to model it, and then that shows people what it is. And in terms of someone I appreciate, I mean, gosh, I'm so fortunate. I have a lot of people in my life that I appreciate, but it's probably my wife, Michelle, who I've been with for almost 25 years,
That's
who,
awesome.
uh, teaches me all the time, challenges me all the time. Like I definitely married up, so I'm grateful for that. And she's just, I mean, she helped me start my business. She's an incredible mother to our two teenage daughters, and I'm just super lucky to be married to her.
I'm trying to think if there's a like equivalent in football. You say you out kick your coverage. When you marry up. I'm trying to think what the equivalent in baseball. I don't know if it's like you overthrew your pitch. I don't know. But what was your favorite pitch, by the way, there, Mike? And what did you like to throw? What was your cheese?
My my best pitch by the time I got to college and then when I was playing professionally was my changeup. Uh,
Okay.
so, I had a little sinking fastball and a slider, but my changeup was the one that had the most movement and got guys out. But in the baseball world, there's like a lot of macho thing. Like if you don't strike someone out with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, everyone gets very angry. So I even actually remember being down at your alma mater at USC, and I had a really good game, and I struck out a bunch of guys, and they were just yelling at me and barking at me like, "Throw a fastball!" And I'm thinking to myself, "Well, if you can't my changeup, why would I throw you a fastball?" So,
You just had to bring that up, huh, Mike? You just had to bring that one up. No.
hey, for what it's worth, though, I actually always pitch better against UCLA than USC. That was one of my few good games against USC. I had some terrible ones, so
So you probably like Kyle Hendricks a lot then, huh?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
he
sure.
he big Cubs fan over here. He always gets guys on the changeup. That's kind of his spiel. So
Yeah.
very cool, man. I love it. Well, hopefully I don't throw you any changeups in this interview. But um, so you have written 5 books. You're a man of great expertise. So kind of walk me through how you can kind of customize or distill that expertise based on what audience you're speaking to.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of look at it like, 24 years speaking, working with, big corporations in technology or finance or healthcare, association events, nonprofit government events. I mean, I'm fortunate and grateful that I've had a chance to speak to lots of different types of audiences over the years. And what I try to do, Jake, as best as I can, is find out like what's going on.
Hmm.
What I mean, when I sit and I'm doing a prep call with a client, whether we're on Zoom or on the phone or we're meeting in person, I literally make two lists always, and it's always like challenges and goals. And that's how I'm listening. Like, what are the challenges going on right now? What are the pain points? What's hard? What's making people stressed out, keeping people up at night? What are the leaders worried about? I mean, that kind of stuff. And like really trying to get down underneath what are the key challenges? And then what are the goals? Like, what's the goal of this event? What's the goal of this meeting? What's happening right now with the team or the organization or, and whether things are going great or things are really not going great or whether there's a big change or transition or it's the beginning of the year or the end of the year. So it's kind of organizing it around that, and then understanding again, like who's in the room. Is it a really senior group of leaders? Is it a sort of cross section of leaders from across the organization? Is it a bunch of folks, individual contributors? Is the message more focused on the team as a whole or leadership or performance? So again, all of those things factor into it. And then, having done as much research as I've done and written as many books as I have over the years, like there's a lot of content to pull from, but I'm always trying to sort of connect it to what's actually going on in the organization or with the group or at the event so that it resonates as best as possible.
That's awesome, and that's really cool that you do that on the pre-call. I mean, that's very thorough and very engaging. So, based on that, then what does a win look like after the speech? You know, is it people coming up to you and kind of sharing how you've impacted them, or is it just based on how you feel? Like, what does a win actually look like in kind of Mike Robbins' world after a speech?
I mean, I always look at it at a couple levels. Like the first level is I want to make whoever invited me in, whether it's an executive or a meeting planner or some referral or I want to make them look good, right? So like they're like, hey, that was a good idea, that was a good fit. But more importantly than making them look good is I want it to resonate with the people who are actually in the room and both resonate in the room itself, but also that there's actions that people can take after the fact. Because we all know this. I mean, a great keynote speech can be a lot of fun, it can be inspiring, it can really fire people up, all the things. But if people don't take something from it that they can actually use in their real life, in their real job, in their real day to day, it's not nearly as valuable. And what I've learned over the years, Jake, in terms of feedback, right? I mean, there's three types of feedback you can get. One is either people say nothing or they say you're terrible, which nobody wants to get that feedback. The second type of feedback is people come and say, whether it's the meeting and event planner or the leaders or executives or attendees come and say, hey, that was great, or you were funny, or that was inspiring. And that's nice to hear for my ego. But the kind of feedback that I'm actually looking for is people coming up and sharing something with me about themselves, even if it seems sort of random, like when, my grandmother used to say this, or I learned this, but, they start sharing about themselves, then I know, okay, this actually resonated on a personal level. And more importantly, even than sharing with themselves, when people come up to me and either ask questions or share ideas that they got for what they're going to do. Because I don't assume to have all the answers. I'm hoping to share ideas and stories and concepts that people then can relate to their own lives and their own jobs and their own challenges and their own goals and actually put that stuff into practice. And some of the ideas that I've heard from people in the audience over the years are way better than the ideas that I shared, but they came from what I talked about. And that always makes me feel really happy. And then I think, hey, I did my job in this sense.
That's beautifully put, and I think that's a perfect way to end, Mike, because that's very powerful, and I can see how that can happen, and definitely we love having you on the platform, getting you out there and having people take what you have to say and running with it. So we appreciate you sharing a little bit about yourself, what you speak about today. If you want to learn more about Mike, go to lessengaged.com. You can find his profile there, book him, and thank you again, Mike, for joining us on this episode of Engage Presents.
Thanks.